Yesterday you saw that when the narrator, the doctor, actually started to taking the Pumphrey with him. Mrs. Pumphrey actually start wailing. Wailing is actually the deep cry, as I explained you yesterday. You can note down the meaning from here. To utter a prolonged, intricate, mournful cry. So actually, students, then the narrator actually marched out to the car, carrying the little dog wrapped in a blanket. The entire staff was roused, and maids rushed in out, bringing his bed. Actually, the narrator took the dog out of the house by wrapping him in a blanket. Blanket, student, you all understand what the blanket is. And after this, the entire staff of Mrs. Pumphrey's house, Mrs. Pumphrey is a rich lady, and she has many staffs in her house. So all the staffs and maids actually rushed and out, bringing his day bed, his night bed, his favorite cushions, toys and rubber rings, breakfast ball, lunch ball, super ball, etc., etc. So many things every maid and servant start to bring of trickies. Tricky has Tricky sleeps on different bed at each time. He has his day bed. On this bed he sleeps only in the day, during the day. He has the night bed also. For sleeping in night, he has his favorite cushions. Cushions are actually, you know, the things with the support of which you sit or you sleep, such as your pillows, or sometimes the small pillows that we keep on our couches and on our bed. And then all the toys of Tricky, and then the rubber rings, through which it actually a jump. Rubber ring, a student, you can understand what the rubber rings, rings made of rubber, and through the top, Tricky used to play with this. And then the eating utensils of Tricky. The Tricky used to have a breakfast ball, lunch ball, supper ball. Student, ball is actually the utensil, in which you eat something. It's katora, and it eats its different meals during the day in different utensils, such as it takes breakfast in a different bowl, he takes lunch in a different bowl, and then the supper in a different bowl. Supper is actually the evening meal. Now the narrator is thinking that, he first read from here and then I will explain. Realizing that my car would never hold all this stuff, I started to drive away. As I moved off, Mrs. Pumphrey, with a despairing cry, threw an armful of the little coats through the window. I looked in the mirror before I turned the corner of the drive. Everybody was in tears. Actually, the narrator, realized that he cannot put all these things into his car. It would be more than the car could carry. So he just started to drive away from. Yeah, 1 second, wait. So as the narrator started to take him away in his car, Mrs. Pumphrey actually somehow managed to throw the an armful of coats through the window of the car. Actually, armful of coats means to say that how many coats she could hold in her hands. She threw all the coats of what his name, Tricky, into the car through the window of the car. Then I looked in the mirror before I turned the corner of the driver. Everybody was in tears. Then, before he could turn his car into the corner, he just saw in the mirror that everybody there and everyone was actually so sad. They all were in tears. They all were thinking that now they would probably never see Tricky again. That's what everyone was feeling. Now, out on the road, I glanced down at the pathetic little animal gasping on the seat by my side. I patted the head, and the Tricky made a brave effort to wag his tail. Poor old lad. I said, you haven't a kick in you, but I think I know a cure for you. Actually, when the doctor actually moving on the road, he just took a glance of Tricky. Glance means just he looked once at Tricky. And doctor has referred the dog as a pathetic little animal who was gasping. Gasping means when you are panting, जब आप हाफ रहे हो. And pathetic means someone, you have become fat and you have become lazy, you cannot do, when you are physically or mentally very weak or in a poor state, then this word pathetic is used actually, students. The dog was actually sitting beside him in the car and it was actually gasping for air. It was having a very heavy breath. Now, the narrator actually patted the head of Tricky, and then when he patted the head of the Tricky made a very brave effort to wag his tail. Actually, you all know that this is the dog's habit to wag his tail. Narrator just explained that poor old lad. You all students know that lad is a male word to denote male person such as boss, and then the doctor Mr. Harriot just told the Tricky that he was just talking to himself, and he just explained about Tricky that he haven't had any kick in him now. This phrase means that he does not have any energy now left in his body. He has lost all his physical energy. That's what this idiom mean. You haven't a kick in you. When someone says you haven't a kick in you, it means that you have lost your strength. You have become very weak. But the doctor is also saying that he knows a cure for Tricky. So he has confidence. The doctor has the confidence that he can cure Tricky. That's what the Mr. Harriot was thinking. Now, students, as I have told you that while reading you should question yourself also. So before reading the next part, you have to keep these questions in mind. First, is the narrator as rich as Tricky's mistress? That's what you have to find out after reading. And then, how does he treat the dog? And why is he tempted to keep Tricky on as a permanent guest? Why does Mrs. Pumphrey think the dog's recovery is a triumph of surgery? Now, students, you have to keep all these questions in mind while reading. Then, in the examination, also it would be very easy for all of you to answer. So, students, we will continue the story tomorrow. This story is a slightly bigger one, and especially when you are reading online, it becomes, it takes longer than usual to complete the chapter, but we can still, gather some speed sooner rather than later. And after that, this is a new thing for everyone, even for you and for teachers also. So it's taking some time this time, but the more we will read in this way, the better we will read and the better we will understand, and actually we will gather some speed also, and we will complete the lessons quicker in coming time comparing to nowadays.